Welcome to the October 18th City Council meeting. If you will please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
When are you there?
I am.
Oh, whoa.
She was. She was.
Did you just hang on just a second?
Yes, he did.
Yes, I did. All right.
Call real quick and then we'll do the roll.
Oh,
Hello, sorry about that.
I don't know how I lost you, but I did.
No, we all know. I'm not gonna tell you either.
We don't know. All right, Jackie, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Hewlin. Here. Parker.
Present.
Kling.
Here.
Schroeder.
Here.
Southall.
Here.
Marchant.
Present.
Mayor Pepper.
Present, thank you. First item on our agenda is always public comment. If there's anybody here wishing to speak about anything not on the agenda, now is your time to come speak. If you want to talk about something on the agenda, that's when you'll talk, when we're at that agenda item. Seeing none, hearing none, we're going to move into consent agenda. I know we need to pull claims at this point. Anything else need to get pulled? If not, I'll take a motion.
Motion to second.
Jackie?
Councilmember Schroeder.
Aye.
Southall.
Aye.
Marchant.
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
Motion carries. And now how about a motion to approve claims?
Move to approve.
Second.
Jackie?
Councilmember Marchant.
Aye.
Hewlin.
Abstain.
Parker.
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Southall.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. On to council reports, Metro Advisory Report. Councilmember Bob Kling.
We had Metro, here's my Metro Advisory Committee report for 12. That's, yeah, 12, okay. We had three basic reports. We had a report from the Polk County Health Department. And that's important in Indianola because that's where our hospitals are located. And Polk County has, last week had a 53% vaccination rate. 93% of the patients in ICU in the hospital in Des Moines are unvaccinated. And typically the workload is one nurse per ICU patient. And right now it's one nurse to 3 to 4 people. So it's really tough with the amount of infections they have. We also had a presentation from the Metro Waste Authority, and their new recycling facility is being built in Grimes. It's almost finished. They'll have a grand opening on the 17th. It's a state-of-the-art recycling facility where it will take all sorts of glass and grinds the stuff up, and it has all sorts of sorters, you know, besides just people, the state-of-the-art sorters. And the prices, if you remember, because we had a presentation last year, how the prices have dropped so much for recycling material. And now the prices they're getting for recycling material has really shot up, especially cardboard. So now the price per ton skyrocketed, and one reason because of Amazon. What they're working now is a stabilization fund. So they understand that it's cyclical. They understand that at times the prices are going to go down and their prices are going to go up. And they want to have a stabilization fund so they won't have to constantly change the rates for that. So we also had a report about VITA, which is a volunteer income tax assistance. I wasn't aware of this, but the IRS, it's actually funded by the IRS, and it's a volunteer income tax assistance and tax counseling for the elderly. And they offer free basic tax return preparation for qualified individuals. People who generally make $50,000 or less, persons with disabilities, and limited English-speaking taxpayers. This program, to take advantage in Warren County, you need to contact the Iowa State Extension Office. They have people there that will direct you, how to do that. So if you need assistance in getting your tax preparation, they will do it. So that's pretty much it.
Great, thank you. Questions for Bob? Okay,
Just a comment, it's funny how they don't want to give their money back.
Yeah.
They were quick to come to us to raise our rates, but
Yeah,
when,
yeah.
we're gonna have a stabilization fund, but we'll just set over here, that
Yeah.
way we can get more money down the road when our costs go up.
Yeah.
okay. Next up is the mayor's report. I have a couple of things just want to share. First, I want to give a shout out to our friends at Fairway. What a nice event. I was there. I know some of you were all there. The Clydesdales were there, but that was a wonderful event. They donated today $5,000 to the police and the fire for the city of Indianola. So thanks to our chiefs for being there and attending, but thank you to Fairway for that really nice event. I think a lot of people had a lot of fun. Also want to do a shout out to our public safety teams for their very nice open house, same night. Lots of people were there, lots of fun events. Great job. Appreciate all that work and effort and great educational opportunities. So thank you. Ryan Waller and I had the opportunity to attend an event last Monday at the Country Club. It was Steve Spray Day. We proclaimed it. So did the governor. They've named the lane, the entry to the Country Club after Steve Spray. He is a famous golfer from Indianola, Iowa. So that's always exciting to celebrate famous Indianolans. I would also like to thank anybody that has attended or viewed the city forums that have been happening. The council ones have all happened. And then this Thursday is the school board forum at 7 o'clock at the Presbyterian Church. So please, nothing better than an informed public that they can make decisions. And just a reminder, voting is now open at the county admin building in the auditorium. You can vote weekdays 8 to 4:30, and then of course 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on November 2nd. And then the last is always my push. We're always looking for great people to volunteer to be on any of our boards and commissions. That is on our website, a simple application to be filled out. But we would greatly appreciate having some new people join us in service to our community. That's all I got for you this week. Move on to proclamation. It's Arts and Humanities Month, which I am a fan of. So whereas the importance of culture in America is recognized during National Arts and Humanities Month each October, and whereas the arts and humanities epitomizes the accumulated wisdom, intellect, creativity, imagination of humankind, and whereas arts and humanities play a vital role in our communities and lives by amplifying social issues and driving change, and whereas the humanities help our community explore our history and culture, and whereas public support for the arts enhances our community and stimulates our economy. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Pepper, do hereby proclaim October as Arts and Humanities Month throughout the city of Indianola. I extend my great appreciation to those individuals who contribute to the arts as an artist or through their public service leadership, donations, and investments in order to increase the beauty and culture around us. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand, caused the seal of the city of Indianola, Iowa, this 18th day of October 21.
Mayor, in honor of National Arts Month, people need to get out there and buy art from local artists. Very important.
That's a great point.
Shameless
And
plug.
appreciate our
Shameless.
public art. I wrote about it in our Indianola magazine, but I agree. There's lots of great art in this community. Please enjoy it.
60-day moratorium now.
Nothing more artistic than a chicken cooker.
All right, we're going to move on to old business. First item is sponsored project program. We need to have a public hearing on the matter of a proposed authorization of a loan and disbursement agreement and the issuance of not to exceed $1,800,000 sewer revenue capital loan notes.
Motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
Okay, Jackie, please.
Councilmember Hewlin. Aye. Parker,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're now in a public hearing. We'll let Andy go first to give us some overview.
Mayor, members of council, I mentioned this previously when you set the date for the public hearing. The sponsored project, and we brought this up also when the city was awarded the project, and also previously when we were planning the streetscape project. But the sponsored project is a program through the Iowa Finance Authority, who handles the state revolving funds for the sewer projects that we're doing, especially the water resource recovery facility project. And what this program does, it allows cities to amend a current SRF loan to reduce the interest rate to allow for additional funds to be used for stormwater infrastructure. And the stormwater projects that we're doing for clean water on the square is the pavers that are going to be going into the parking and also the bioretention cells. If you have any questions, and because we're amending the loan, we have to hold this public hearing and then the resolution afterwards.
Questions for Andy?
Pretty much what we expect. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else here wanting to speak about this issue? If so, now's your time to come forward. Seeing none, hearing none, we can go out of a public hearing if you want to.
Move to end the closed session. Second.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
public hearing. We knew what you meant.
Yeah.
I did that last
Hey,
time.
you do, John.
Jackie, please.
Councilmember Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall.
Aye.
We're out of the public hearing. And now we need a resolution authorizing a loan and disbursement agreement and the issuance of not to exceed $1,800,000 sewer revenue capital loan notes.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, questions? Jackie, please.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. On to a resolution authorizing the certification of liens to the Warren County Treasurer for purposes of assessing the cost of nuisance abatement against property.
So moved. Second.
Charlie?
Good evening, Charlie DeSalle, Community and Economic Development Director. Normally this item is on your consent agenda, but just kind of wanted to give the council an update at this point in the year on where we are with property maintenance enforcement and just kind of some high level stuff regarding that. So really quick on our process, as I think council is aware, if we receive a complaint, typically our process is we will go on site, inspect the alleged violation, we'll leave a door hanger and also send a letter. Typically with your normal law, a tall grass to weed complaint, we give the property owner 3 days to comply with that. If the property owner does not abate it, then the city schedules an abatement with one of our 3 current abatement contractors. Ultimately, the cost of that abatement is assessed back to the property owner in one of 2 ways. So first of all, we'll send an invoice of those costs to the property owner, and by code, we have to give them a month or 31 days to pay those fees. If they don't pay those fees, then the action that you're taking here this evening is to assess those costs as on property taxes. So just some data that we have to date. So far this year, we spent just over $13,500 in property maintenance things. So 9,500 of that has been actual abatements, over 26 abatements. Most of your tall grass and weed abatements run anywhere between $200 to $300. We've had some other ones that have been pretty high. We had a large field that had to be mowed. We had a property that had a lot of junk stored in it that had to be abated, took all day to do. So some of those abatements can get up in the $1,000 range, depending on what they are. So, and then additionally, just legal fees, obviously, anything that we do, we have to have attorneys helping us if we're taking people to court and all of that stuff. So we expended about $4,100 in legal fees. We have 30,000 budgeted. Typically once snow starts to fly, I think our abatements settle down because grass obviously is not growing. So I think my rule or thumb when I watch this is just to make sure once we get to the end of the calendar year, we haven't expended over half of that. But that's also not going to stop us, because if we continue to have issues, we are going to take care of them. So any questions on any of that, I'd be happy to answer.
So
Yeah.
how does the process work then? So when you turn these into the county, then they put it on to the property taxes. Do they,
Yep.
Does that come out of the next payment of the property taxes, or is it?
Yeah, and I looked before the meeting. I think this year we've had one payment back from the county. I think it was about $1,200. So I don't know, and Andy, you might know that one a little bit better. Do those come just in twice a year, or do they come in monthly?
They come in when we get them.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if it's a regular time, but we see him every other month or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not on a monthly basis.
And there's the offset program, and then there's liens against the property. So sometimes if we're a lien against the property, so in this particular case, Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's a lien against the property, we won't see that until there's a sale on the property.
Yep.
And there is no specific guarantee that the community will collect on a lien.
Correct.
Because of how the order of lien holders falls on that.
Yeah.
If it does go to the offset program, that's where the state will pay us through the tax refunds. Thank you, Jackie. So there's different ways to try to recoup, and we explore all.
And even on the list that you have in front of you, I'm just looking at two of them. I'm not going to name them off their names because I don't want to call anybody out necessarily, but there's one who has been on tax sale for about 20 years. Nobody's purchased that property, so it just continues to sit there on tax sale. And there's another one that's currently in the state right now where the property owner has passed away and did not have anybody lined up to take ownership of that property. And there's actually a nursing home at this point who is trying to take control of the estate. So some of those ones in particular, yeah, we assume that we'll probably not see any of those funds back, but again, it's a nuisance and it does need to be taken care of.
Is this amount typical for, for a year? Is this more or less, or?
For Indianola, are
Yeah.
you saying? It's actually been a little bit more this year, and I think I would attribute that to the fact that we have now a full-time code enforcement officer who's taking care of some of this stuff. So we are being a little bit more aggressive on that front. But typically in a year, I know the past few years, we've been pretty close to that $30,000 amount every single year, so.
Other questions? Thank you for explaining the process. Always good for the public to hear how and why this works this way. Jackie, call the roll, or please.
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall. Aye. Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is a resolution approving a contract with Kayakota for animal control services.
Move to approve. Second.
Please.
Yes, we were working on a contract with Kayakota for the next 3 years for animal control services. You can see up on the screen there, the cost for the city for the animal control services. Continuing through the end of 2022, it'll be $4,000 a month. 23, it'll be $4,250 a month, and then 2024, it'll be $4,500 a month. They do actively we met with them on Friday to talk a little bit about their collection efforts, and they do actively go out and to collect the animals when they're able to round up the animal to get them. And also in the contract, as you can see, there's also additional fees if the animal is not claimed. So there is additional the pickup fee and then also the boarding fee as well.
Questions for Andy? Comments? Jackie, please.
Councilmember Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall. Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Andy. On to new business then. We need a resolution authorizing the purchase of a generator for the Wesley lift station.
Move to approve.
Okay. Rick?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. During the annual maintenance of the Wesley Lift Station generator.
He's on, he
becoming-
might be going slow. But he-
Can you hear me?
This, well, he's getting situated. He's on, I don't know if he's having issues with this mic, but this is part of a 2-year project that was in the CIP. So the cost for this is $27,800. And this was discovered by a contractor that the current generator is obsolete and some of the parts are no longer available. So yes. Yes.
Questions, comments, council? Okay.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall. Aye. Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
Motion carries. And to just note, all of our lift stations are being brought up to speed and so they can run with our new water resource recovery facility. So some of these things are just having to be fixed.
Yeah, and Rick and his crew have done a really great job of and national publications have written about the efforts that our community is doing. So lining the sewers and taking care of the lift stations, making sure they're upgraded and more technologically advanced to talk to our new plants and make sure that they're able to run in the event of power outages. So
Has the DNR noticed the efforts that we've put in over the last so many years?
Oh, yeah.
Do they-
oh,
just
absolutely.
curious.
Yeah. They have been actually last week. Rick and I met with Jim Rasmussen, and the DNR is really has been really high on the city and the work that's been done, specifically with the wastewater treatment plant. I know that they want to use that as an example of to other communities of what is possible. I think I shared with the council when we were going through the permitting phase with the DNR that they said to us that our plant and permitting our plant was their number 1 priority because of a lot of what's happening. And, you know, that's a testament to Rick and the staff there and the relationships that have been established. Our field rep with the DNR knows that Rick's responsive. Rick's always communicative, very transparent in everything that's happening. And when you do that, you build that level of trust, and it's a testament to Rick and the team.
I know when I first came on council, and I'm sure Greg and Pam can speak to this as well, that we were not thought very highly of by the DNR. In fact, they had their thumb on us and they were going to punish us pretty hard and did. And our citizens paid for it through all the I&I ridiculousness. And so it's good to see when you're proactive and you work with them that we're getting things done and taking care of the business that needed to be done. So thank you. That's a testament to Rick and his staff. So
Will they actually come down and visit them or anything?
They visited,
Oh,
the
have-
DNR has visited the plant as it's progressing, as have other communities and other contractors that specialize in this type of work. I do know that as things get further along, there'll be more demonstrations and tours and whatnot.
Yeah.
Oh, I hear for sewer people, it's Indianola is their number 1 and number 2 priorities.
Bob, you already had one. That's it. Greta, please.
You're done.
All right, we're moving on. Next item is first consideration of an ordinance amending provisions of City of Indianola Code Section 135.14 relating to driveway standards.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, hi AP.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is AP Public Works Director. Today I'm here to discuss about the first reading of the ordinance for driveway standards. Currently, the City of Indianola does not have driveway standards, and it is common for communities, similar communities, to have these standards. So the objective of this ordinance amendment is to create a uniform standard for new or altered driveways. What this is basically it doesn't apply for existing driveways. It is only for new or altered construction. So the bigger goal is to reduce the number of conflicts on streets or intersections, which is basically the possible accidents that may occur on streets, intersections, and driveways, which will eventually make our streets safer for pedestrians and motorists. So as a part of these driveway standards, what we have created is the driveway standards are going to be more site specific, and it is primarily dependent on the type of development and the functional classification of the roadway. So some of the major 4 factors that we have looked as a part of the driveway standards are basically the setback between driveways and also the setback between the intersection and the driveway. The second factor that we have looked at is the driveway width. How wide can we allow a driveway, things like that. And third factor we have looked is the number of driveways that's permitted per site. And finally, the visibility of the driveway that's available for a driveway. So these are the 4 main factors that we have created the driveway ordinance, based on. So the first factor is the driveway spacing. Here, I wanted to show you a map of an existing street, which is on Orchard Avenue between B Street and C Street. I just wanted to show you a visual of the potential conflicts, which is where the points where you may have accidents on because of the vehicles that use the street. Now, these are the potential conflicts just on the streets itself. This doesn't factor the driveways that you see on this. On the next slide, I just wanted to show you how the conflicts significantly increases because of these driveways. So one of the factors that I said you is where we are looking at the driveway spacing, which is where this table shows you how we want to create a driveway spacing based on the type of the roadway functional classification. So we have created a spacing based on the traffic volume and functional classification of the roadway itself. The second factor is how many driveways do we allow per site, which is primarily dependent on the property, amount of property frontage and the type of the development that goes on the site. So the more frontage you have, we can allow 2 driveways or 1 driveway, depending on that. And then if you have a bigger development, we will require traffic engineering study to justify whether it's signalized, number of driveways, things like that. Third factor is how much width do we allow, which is primarily dependent on the type of access, whether it's a single access, shared access, or the type of access that goes to the driveway and the type of development. And finally, the last factor is the visibility standard. So which is basically based on the type of development. If it's residential, it's a 15-foot triangle. And if it's commercial, it's a 25-foot triangle. So these are the main factors that's been presented to you in the ordinance. If you recall, within the last year or so, we have received several complaints, including the visibility, especially in the school areas and things on the neighborhood areas where we have received complaints on the visibility. We don't have standards. So what we are proposing is the driveway standards will help with these concerns that we have. Does that conclude my presentation?
And just to add on to that, AP, the standards would apply for new or reconstructed, not anything that's existing now.
When you say reconstructed, what do you mean by that? What dictates reconstructed?
So if the property alters the driveway, they wanna reconstruct their house, or if they wanna expand on their driveway, or they wanna add another driveway if they have the frontage, or if they wanna make a circular driveway, depending on the frontage, it'll apply on them.
Okay. So I know we have some issues on Iowa Street, commercial with too many driveways going in and out together there. I just didn't know what that meant. So
Well, and the number of customer service issues that AP mentioned, those have been funneled through you to us. And those are some examples where the driveways have caused some of the issues that we've tried to adjust after the fact, retroactively fix, whether, no parking restrictions and whatnot.
It's great to have staff that knows this stuff and knows what you're doing, AP, so thanks very much. We rely on good staff, and you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackie, please.
Councilmember Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall, Marchant.
Aye.
Motion carries. Excellent. Thank you. On to first consideration of an ordinance amending the city code of the city of Indianola, Iowa, creating regulations related to a residential rental code and making certain related amendments to the property maintenance code.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Charlie.
Okay. Good evening again, Charlie DeSalle, Community and Economic Development Director. I guess council will recall in mid-April, we did get direction from council to start this process. As you're aware, communities with a population of over 15,000 are required to adopt a rental inspection program. While census numbers were delayed, we knew we would be at this point when we did get those numbers back. So we started that process, and I think today just kind of signifies that we've got the ordinance in place, we've done the research and now asking for council approval. So we did note up there in 2020, we did get our official census numbers back. That number is 15,833. So again, over the 15,000. And we have met with members of the rental housing community, both in early August and in September. And I'll kind of elaborate more on that here in a second. So looking at our proposed code, how did we come up with this code? We researched what approximately 20 other cities in the state of Iowa do as far as rental inspections. We had a public survey that is still active and has been active for quite a few months. We looked at input from both tenants, landlords, and even just general citizens of the city on their opinions of rental property within the city. We've held 6 different public meetings on this that started with a council study session and ended last week with a planning and zoning commission meeting. We looked at what state code requires and then what exceptions state code also requires us to put into the ordinance. So currently what we're looking at is a registration and certification process of rental properties. An inspection process would inspect every rental property within the city every 2 years. An outline complaint process. So what that is if a tenant has a complaint that they have, they're able to file that with the city, and that is a requirement of the state code. And then Board of Adjustment to handle appeals. I'll go into that one a little bit further here in a little bit. But again, you can see on the left side here, those are the items that are required by state. And on the right side is what we put on the draft. So what we've added to the draft that is not required by the state is to put in a no retaliation clause. That rent collections are not recoverable if outstanding items do remain on the property, and then a transfer of ownership provision is also placed in there. You'll see on the bottom there where we say establish a housing board of appeals. That's something that we have not done. And going back to the last slide, we are going to lean for the time being, at least our recommendation is for the time being to lean on the Board of Adjustment to act as that appeal board. Right now, we didn't know exactly what the demand for that appeal board was going to be. And rather than create a new committee that we're going to be looking for volunteers from, we just figured we'd stick with the Board of Adjustment for now. So looking at the certifications, first a property owner, our manager would have to apply through our department. Council may be aware we're working currently on getting an online permitting system up and running. We're starting with the rental side of things. So rather than tracking over 2,000 rental properties on an Excel spreadsheet, we're hopeful that we will have an online permitting system in place by the beginning of next year. The property owner and manager would then schedule a rental inspection. Upon no outstanding issues on the property would then issue that certificate, and that certificate would expire once every 2 years. Looking at the actual rental inspections, again, they would schedule it with us. They would be required to give their tenants 24-hour notice. That's actually a state code requirement. And our code enforcement would go out and inspect those properties. Regarding complaints, I first want to note on here, the complaint process does outline the entire process on this, but first and foremost, if a tenant does have a complaint, they are required to at least notify the property owner or landlord of that complaint prior to notifying us. We don't necessarily have a timeline in there. So, you know, at 1 minute they could send their landlord an email, the next minute send us one, but we just want to make sure that the landlord's first notification on this complaint is not coming from the city, that there is collaboration on that. Once the city does get that, though, we'll notify the landlord of the complaint, and the landlord has 7 days to address the issue. And if the tenant does note that that issue is not addressed within 7 days, then we would come out and conduct an inspection and see if there is still a valid complaint there. Notice I mentioned the transfer of ownership thing. Really what this is if you get a certificate in January and then you sell your property in March, that certificate is transferable to the next property owner rather than making them go through the process of doing a new inspection. And then the no retaliation clause, essentially what that says is that tenants cannot be retaliated against if there is a complaint that is filed by the tenant. They cannot be retaliated against from the landlord. And then rent collection, I kind of mentioned that briefly, but again, if there is an outstanding issue on a rental property that is not being taken care of, our code does state that then the landlord cannot collect rent until that issue is taken care of. So looking at some of the exceptions that are built in there, because I mentioned that previously, but dwellings which are occupied by the owner, obviously not subject to these regulations. Transient shelters, group homes, and college dormitories subject to state licensing requirements are not subject to these regulations. And then further hotels, motels, extended stay hotels, and other similar uses that are subject to state licensing. That clause right there does extend to short-term rentals such as VRBO and Airbnb. That's due to the state legislature making a change to those laws here a couple sessions ago, where the city cannot regulate those types of uses. As far as inspection exceptions, I mentioned the transfer of ownership. Again, if you transfer ownership, you don't need to get an inspection. Your inspection would be due when that certificate is expired. It does not, or excuse me, if you have new units that go up. So for example, the Williams Terrace complex out on North 9th Street, when that gets up, that's going to be a rental complex. The initial inspection we do before the CO counts as the first inspection. And then 2 years later, they'd have to start the process of getting regular inspections. And then also we have an exception built in there that essentially if it's a HUD property that has an annual inspection, in lieu of our inspection, they can submit the HUD inspection. We could review that to make sure everything was good and then just issue the certificate, since those types of inspections are a little bit more rigorous than what we have proposed in our code. Want to kind of discuss the phasing plan real quick. So again, we know we have just over 2,000 rental units within the city spread over multiple areas. Rather than inspect all of these properties right up front, we want to spread that out over the first 2 years. So we have kind of an equal workload moving through those first 2 years. So we've identified some of the rental properties. We note that in Ward 1 and Ward 3, that's where most of our rental properties are located, kind of where some of our bigger multifamily complexes are. And then in Ward 2 and 4, there's an equal number in those 2 wards combined that there are in the other 2 wards. So we'll propose an 8-month implementation on each of those groups. So we don't know what the order is going to be quite yet. We'll get into that, I think, as we move forward. But for example, Ward 1 could be the first 8 months when we start this program. The second 8 months could be another ward, and then that last 8 months could be Ward 2 and 4 combined. And that's how we think we can split this thing up pretty good on the onset. And then where can we find information about the program? We've had some information on our website for quite some time now. This is just a picture of what that website looks like, and then the URL at the bottom. As we move forward with this program, we're going to have a lot more resources and stuff like that that will continue to add to this. And this will just kind of be the rental hub for the city, I guess, hosted on the community development website. I mentioned we've had quite a few public meetings. They're listed on the screen here, the 6 that we've had. And if you go to the city's YouTube page, 3 of the meetings that we had with tenants. So we quickly go back, we separated the meetings that we had with tenants and landlords. The first meeting we had was with tenants. We had 5 tenants show up to that meeting. Second meeting we had a week later was with landlords. We had 55 landlords attend that meeting. They asked for a follow-up meeting. We had about 55 at that follow-up meeting as well. Those 3 meetings are all on our YouTube page for anybody to view. So if you want to go back and kind of look at the discussion that took place in those meetings, it is located on our YouTube page. So just a few outstanding items that we want to get some direction from council on prior to full adoption of this ordinance. So first and foremost, we've had a lot of questions come up on the proposed fees. We're proposing a fee of $75 per building and then $30 for each unit over the first unit within a building. So kind of explaining that below, a single family dwelling, that would be $75. A duplex would be $105. That's at $75 then plus the $30. For a unit apartment building would be $165. 8 unit apartment building would be $285. And just note those fees are going to be due every 2 years. That's not an annual fee, so that can be spread out over a 2-year period. So council is okay with that. Ultimately, when we can have a discussion here at the end, we'll bring that fee change, the fee resolution change back upon third consideration of the ordinance. So a few things that we built within the property maintenance changes that came up at the last landlord meeting. First and foremost, the radon requirement that we put in there. And we say that radon at a level of 4 or above in the lowest habitable space of the dwelling shall be deemed as hazardous and mitigated by a radon mitigation specialist certified by the state of Iowa. Essentially what we're saying there is that there is not a requirement to have a test, but if a tenant does perform a test or gets a test performed and we find it's over that level, then the landlord would be required to mitigate. Landlords had a little bit of a concern with that regulation because of some of the costs that may come with that. So our Board of Adjustment looked at some alternative language. I'm not going to go over that because we looked at that from a legal perspective and it was not possible. But our Planning and Zoning Commission then looked a little bit further at it and came up with some amended language to essentially state that the tenant or occupant could request a radon test before signing or renewing a lease. that the landlord would have to honor that request and have the test, allow the test to be done. And if it was, if it did come over, then, landlord has an option to mitigate it. If they don't, then obviously the landlord doesn't, or excuse me, the tenant wouldn't have to sign the lease if they were concerned with that. So I think our Planning and Zoning Commission felt like that was kind of a good alternative to that, because ultimately what we're doing is we're making sure that the tenant is safe in their environment. If they don't feel safe because of high radon levels, then that's a avenue for them to get out of the lease at that point. And then the other one was we proposed a code language that said following each change in tenancy that the locking devices on the dwelling units be changed out. Again, landlords had some concern with that too, just because of some perceived cost on that. So both of our Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of Adjustment agreed to add language essentially saying at the request of the tenant, they would have to be switched out. So if the tenant did not request it, then you would not have to switch out the locking devices. And again, I think they felt like that was a good compromise to the landlord's concerns. So with that, again, I think those three items we kind of want some direction on, and then the survey results were included in your packet. The draft inspection checklist was included in your packet, and then obviously the code was included in your packet. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on any of those, and then just look forward to kind of discussing these last three items and getting some direction from the council.
I just want to thank you for sharing all the information that you collected. There was a lot of opportunity for public input, and I enjoyed reading the surveys and actually the comments that were in there too. So I think that there's definitely been some meaningful thought put into how to roll this out, which is important. So.
And I'd be remiss if I did not mention one thing. I know Emily, our intern, is on Zoom right now, but she did a lot of the legwork for this and deserves quite a bit of that credit. So just want to make sure she's recognized for
I'd say
that.
the questions were great.
I'd just like to add, I think you were way ahead of the curve on this, and I really appreciate that as soon as we were able to begin planning and implementing, you're ready to go. And I just think that's key because there's a lot of work to be done. So I really want to thank you for that. I thought it was thorough, but reasonable. And I think you did a great job.
I happened to go to the Board of Adjustment meeting that night, slow night, and I had somebody in my ward who had a different issue, and I wanted to be there. But the discussion was great, and when it was all done, I thanked them for making some of the tough decisions before it even got to us, which is what they did. So, no, I thought there was quite a bit of discussion about things. So, very good.
How will that process work for the appeals? Is it similar to the Board of the normal Board of Adjustment appeals that, in other words, are they still a quasi judicial branch for that part of it? Is that how that works? Okay.
Yep.
So then it would never come to the council. It would go to district court after that. Okay. I think that's the best place for it then, the Board of Adjustment. I know that means more work for them, I'm sure, but.
Yeah, and Indianola is unique in that the Board of Adjustment actually, well, I shouldn't say I don't know if they're unique, but from what I'm used to, their Board of Adjustment also serves as the building boards of appeals as well. So they're used to that, even though we haven't really had too much action.
Right.
From that end, but again, we'll get them up to speed if anything does ever come up.
Good. Yeah, I want to add to what others have said here. I think this is phenomenal. The work has been done. There's a lot of lifting here to get this up to speed and have it ready to go. It's kind of nice when you know that coming in that, hey, we're going to be here, so we might as well get started and be proactive with it. And the fact that you met with so many different groups on multiple times and got information and then put it all out there, the transparency and so everybody knows what the expectations are going in. That's I kudos to you guys. This is phenomenal. So
I do have a question for you.
I just wanted to say that he is very conscious. The whole group was on not only the landlords, but the renters. I mean, both sides. And I thought that was very fair. Yeah.
The proposed fees, would they be reviewed annually or? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's something we propose annually. So I'll back up into that really quick. We looked at what other cities do as far as what their fees are. We feel that's pretty much in line with them. Also kind of looked at what the program is going to cost us internally, just to make sure that we can get most of those costs back through the fees.
Okay, thank you.
This is another perfect example of how we rely on good people, Charlie. So thank you. Thank your staff. this is how things are supposed to work. So thanks again. Appreciate it.
Great job. Truly, a lot of work, a lot of information, very,
Yeah,
very
it's
thorough, which I thought was
very-
great. The only thought of correction is you have lots of ranges, 0 to 5. You never tell what 0 means or what 5 means. So it's shows.
Oh,
what
you're talking on the survey?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
and Emily, I know you're on. If you can jump in, I think she can maybe elaborate a little bit on those numbers.
Well, we just mark it so we know what it is moving
Yeah.
forward in the
Okay.
future, just so people just know.
I think we're having some technical difficulty with
On the Zoom,
our staff that's on Zoom communicating now.
Okay, yep, and we'll get that up. Yep.
Yeah, it's great information, but I
Yeah.
just don't want you to misinterpret
Right,
a certain score.
Comments are always enlightening too, so.
they were, yeah.
Mhm.
So, and again, I appreciate the accolades, and I just want to kind of go back to these last 2 items again, or the last 3 items. Everybody sounds like we're good with the fees on that, so we'll bring that forward. That's going to be, have to be approved in a separate, but both the radon and the locking devices, the locking devices, we had some concurrence from both the Board of Adjustment and Planning and Zoning. I think that's a good compromise for that one. Yeah, and then it really comes down to the radon, and I know that can. So.
Right, I mean, as a business owner, I'm kind of a firm believer in, if you don't like where you're gonna live or do business with, go someplace else, there's plenty others, so, yeah, I think this is a good compromise to go with that, so.
I think they're spot on.
I thought it was a good compromise on the radon. I think that's a really good suggestion.
Get the draft ordinance updated and to you for second, third consideration then.
Thank you.
Other
Thanks,
comments or questions for Charlie? Okay, Jackie, please.
Councilmember Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall. Marchant.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Next up is resolution approving a plat of survey for Robert and Elizabeth Freeze located at 603 East Hillcrest Avenue.
Move to approve.
Second.
Charlie?
And just a kind of a quick update on this one. So there's multiple layers to this one. First and foremost, this property on the north side of town, which is currently a 55-acre vacant piece of ground, is on the market right now. And we've been working with a few residential developers who've looked into it, kind of getting that information out to them. And we've had one pre-development meeting and looking to possibly schedule a second one right now on this. So what this is doing though, is the property owner is requesting to split off the existing farmstead from the property so they can sell that separately from the development ground. It is all currently zoned in the A1 zoning district. The A1 zoning district does require a minimum of 15 acres to have single family dwellings on it. So prior to this action, they did get a variance from the Board of Adjustment to that 15-acre minimum to allow the split onto 2 acres. There was a condition that was placed on that variance that when the balance of the ground goes through a rezoning process, that this house is also brought in that process. So then we do have a conforming lot as it relates to zoning. So just wanted to make sure that the council was aware of that action. And again, just noting we've got some development ground available in the city, and we're working with a few developers right now to possibly look into that. So.
Great opportunities.
Yeah. Charlie? Jackie, please.
Councilmember Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall. Marchant.
Aye.
Motion carries. On to other business. City managers report. Ryan Waller.
Not much to report other than I did send out an email to all candidates and the media, and this is not something that I normally do. It involves a personnel matter. It was brought to my attention that during one of the forums that there was reference made to a former employee who the comment was made that this person was fired. That is not true. That's not factually correct at all. This person was not fired, was not asked to resign. The person was a great employee who did a lot for our organization and in service of the departments that outwardly faced the community. Again, we normally don't share personnel matters, but this person chose to pursue a different avenue. I won't share those reasons; those are not mine to share. But he left on extremely great terms as a valued member of our team, and I thought that that was something that was important enough to make sure that the public was aware that that was not an accurate statement. You know, we pride ourselves, the city team pride ourselves on having the facts and sharing that information. And certainly, if there's ever any question, as the elected officials know, and those that have interacted with our staff know that we will share the facts and nothing but the facts. So.
Anything else for us, other than your received and file your correspondence?
That's all I have. Thank you.
I'll take a motion to receive and file correspondence from October 1st and 8th, 2021. Weekly updates from City Manager Ryan Waller.
I so move.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is to adjourn, but before that, just a reminder that we are moving into council study after a quick 5-minute break. We have two good things coming up: Indianola Public Library's annual report and presentation regarding capital improvement plan. Now I'll take a motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Sorry, Gwen. All right, we'll stand in recess for 5 minutes, hit the restrooms, and we'll be back for council study.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. First item on the agenda is the Indianola Public Library's annual report. And here is Michelle.
Great. Thank you. Michelle Patrick, Director of the Public Library. I'm very pleased to be here in front of you tonight without a mask. That was rough last year.
Great.
But I would like to start my presentation with a question for you, Mayor, and someone calling us on the phone.
We're calling Gwen.
Did you hang up on Gwen again?
No, she had to jump off. Don't blame us.
Bring on their library card.
You guys, I literally had to take a picture of me standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona. How cool is that?
Just take it easy, Gwen. Just take it easy.
I will. I'll take it easy.
Was there a girl that felt that for?
Sorry, Michelle.
All right, guys, are you ready?
Yes.
Mayor, council, I have a question for you, and it is a very, very important question. And that is, what are you bringing to trick or treat this year?
Oh.
Those of you who can't see, that is not a car behind them, that is a hearse. So that's the city council 2019. Library
Had
is,
you won a big prize for that, you know, we might have.
Right.
oh, okay, yeah. We'll see
Mark, we
how
have
you
a
do this
question.
year.
Oh, scooter.
Whether the sewers or the sewer department is bringing those whistles.
No, he told me no whistles. He
Okay.
texted
Well-
me at that meeting when I was.
I recall that we do have a special request from Councilman Parker to be next to whoever has the loudest.
Right, yeah.
So don't worry, we'll take care of that.
Exactly.
Library is really excited to host Trick or Treat again. It's going to be Beggars Night. It's 1 hour before Beggars Night. It is a joint event between IMU and the city. IMU will be there cooking hot dogs, so it's going to be free meals for parents and their kiddos. And then every department of the city is going to be there with their big trucks and tractors, and kids will be able to go around and trick or treat and then go out and do the official Beggars Night. So as you know, there is a trophy. The first year won by IMU Fiber, and then the second year won by the police department. And so this could be the year for council. All right, let's get to the annual report. So in your packet is library's annual report, and it's also on the library's website. So lots of statistics. If you couldn't tell, librarians, we love statistics. If you can quantify it, we're going to count it. But I actually today, I'm going to just condense that down to maybe the biggest questions that you probably have, rather than go through these for a couple hours line by line. And that is, how is the library doing? And the answer is fantastic. The library is doing great. Library usage is up again. 5 years in a row, library circulation continues to increase, up 12% in just 5 years. That's despite COVID, despite everything else that's gone on. We were closed, we were open by appointment. Library usage continues to increase. Next, how many library users? 10,638 active library users have used their card for one reason or another in the last 4 years. And now who uses the library? Everybody does. Everyone uses the library. This is the distribution of our library cards, and you can see that's pretty even. And that's exactly what we want to see. This is a sign of a healthy community when it has something for all ages. Biggest users of the library are those in their 30s. And then second place is very close. It's those that are 70 plus, and then those in their 20s. So those two groups, 30s and 20s, are young families in the community. Those are the big library users. They have the most cards, and they are checking out the most items. So given that it's our young families who are the ones that are really using the library, I think the next assumption would be, well, they really love ebooks, right? Because they're young? No. So ebooks, we have twice as many ebooks as we have books, but you can see 74% of our circulation is physical items. And those folks in that younger age, they are really not that interested in ebooks. So they don't have anything against them, but the preference for the younger generations is they will take a book over an ebook. And there's lots of theories of why that is, and we don't really care. But what we do know is that ebooks are important to the library. We are investing a lot of money into them, but they're not the future of the library. However, one of the trends that we are seeing in the library, and I mentioned this a couple years ago, and we've only seen it increase, is the importance of the library as a space. So people coming to the library to work, and we have, those are our Wi-Fi sessions from last year, It's a great place to work. We have high-speed internet. You can make copies, scans. We have wireless printing. If you need to do a meeting, you need to do a Zoom meeting and you don't want your cat on your keyboard, which has happened to be, if you want to, just do a professional meeting or whatever, you can come to the library for free, stay there all day. And we certainly saw that during COVID and we continue to see that. So library as a space is important. So when you put these factors all together, library usage continues to rise year after year. Our young families are the big library users. Library is very important to our young families, and that space is very, very important. Then the library, the public library building is important to the future of Indianola. Quick fact, built in 1984. So this public library, beautiful building. It gets lots of usage. Last year, the door count was just under 40,000, and not to be a broken record, but remember we were closed for 10 weeks last year. Still 40,000 for the door count, making it a very busy building. And for a lot of folks, it represents the city. They may not have a need to come to City Hall. They may not come to the police department, but they do come to the library. And we are a reflection of the city. We take it our building, we're very proud of it. It's a beautiful building and we do the best that we can. However, based upon its age, it is at the age where things are wearing out. It has it's time to replace some things. It also has some very unique structural features which offer challenges to us. Where we sit today, the library's capital improvement plan. This is the famous boiler, by the way, which is scheduled to be replaced this year. I wish you could see it in person because it's a work of art. As we sit right now, the capital improvement plan for the library sits at just a little over $500,000. And all of these items on this capital improvement plan just improve what we already have. So there's no added value. There's nothing that we are actually improving. We are just making that building safe and structurally sound and operating well and energy efficient. So $508,000 on the capital improvement plan right now. Based upon the number of items that we have on the plan and the number of things that we know we need to replace and sort of the urgency of all of it, the library board decided to contract with an outside consultant to do a complete building assessment. They really just felt like we need to see everything about this building so we can do some better planning. So they have done that. The consultants that they brought in have done some building inspections. They did some thermal imaging on the roof, the electrical and the plumbing, and really, took a big look at this building. And they looked at everything, but they were only looking at structures. They weren't going through and saying, boy, you need new furniture, anything like that. It was just, sort of the basic necessities of the building. So that assessment just came back this week, and it confirmed those building inspections confirmed everything on the capital improvement plan. So that verified that we are on the right track. Of course, a part of me was kind of hoping they would say, well, you don't really need a new roof, but that didn't happen. Everything that we thought we needed, we did need. However, they unfortunately found additional items of the building that need to be addressed. And so if you take what we already knew, what we've already got on the capital improvement plan, and you add the items that they feel that are either really an urgent problem or need to be replaced immediately, that puts the needs of the building at a little over $1 million. So just under 1.2 million. And again, this doesn't add anything new. It doesn't improve the building. This gets us back up to standards.
It's just mostly Band-Aids to keep us moving forward. I mean, like you said, we're really not improving anything. We're just
correct. So an example is the skylight needs to be replaced, and so you're going to replace the skylight. It's not really going to do anything new. It's just going to make it. And that's where we knew there was issues with the skylight. We knew there were problems. We knew we were going to have to replace pieces of it, but the inspector, once getting up there, said, no. And many pictures of this, you're going to have to replace this within the next 5 years. So that's an example of kind of the structural things that we we do know the footings have fallen on the north side of the building. And so there's some tuck pointing that needs to be done. That cannot be fixed. So we do know moving into the future, these kind of tuck pointing every 10 years, we need a plan to do some major tuck pointing on the building. So those are examples. The next step. So the library board needs to digest this report, and we need to go back and we need to work on a capital improvement plan. And you will be seeing that in the future. However, the bad news is, and you thought this was the bad news, but this is the real bad news. Even if we fix this, even if we invest all of this money into the library, the library building itself is too small to serve a community of this size. So as we stand right now, Indianola, as it is, has by far the smallest library building of any community of our size. It is smaller than most of the communities the next size down, what the state would call size E. So for example, our building is smaller than Norwalk's building. And it's not a competition. It's not about who has the biggest building, but what it does mean for our residents is that they do not receive the same library services that folks who live in other communities have. So they do not have their collection. We don't have the collection that other libraries have. They don't receive the services that other libraries can provide. They don't receive the programs that we would, that they should receive, that would be normal for a library our size, that they would normally receive. And so, you know, forgive me for being overly candid, but we are behind and we are falling behind. And it is not because of the library staff. I want to make that very clear. They work very, very hard. It is because just the limitations of the building. A good example is every book that comes in, one has to go. It's just, we're full. That's the kind of issue that we are in. So we just completed our annual survey. We like to have the public input. We are a public library. On what people want from their library, what they feel that we need. And one of the questions we asked the public was, what do you think the library's priority should be in the next 5 years? What do you think would be the most essential thing that this library can provide for the community? And the top choice that they had very specifically, and we asked them to come up with very specific examples, was more collection. People wanted more collection. And then the second one was they wanted the children's section enlarged. And at this point, we cannot do either one of those. I'm just going to leave you with a quote. This just came on the survey. And I just thought it was very interesting. Questions from all of you.
What were the asterisks for Joaquin, Altoona? What was that?
Oh, they are in the middle. They're expanding. They are in the middle of building a bigger building. And actually North Liberty was on there too. They're still in the talking phase. They're not actually, but they're in the process of expanding. Question?
Well, this August group has heard this as we've gone through the last several years with the building assessment we did here. And as part of that, that's when we started looking at the library more closely as an option. The reality exists that Michelle touched on at the library building, but also here at City Hall. The building does not house what is needed currently, let alone what's needed in the future. And when you talk about, there'll be folks that will talk about the costs. And the reality is, when you ignore costs and things like the boiler system, I think that's probably a much better example. The boiler system at the library is the same boiler system that we have here at City Hall. And that's 40 years. That didn't just happen overnight. It's 40 years of a piece of equipment that is critical to the successful operations of these facilities. And what Matt Brown from Formation Group shared with this group a couple years ago is they're not training folks on how to repair those anymore. They're not making parts for those things anymore. So the cost to maintain a undersized and failing building is going to cost you more in the long run than it would be to make sure that something is properly sized and has the technology of the day that people are working on, that are training on, that is more environmentally sensitive, that is able to keep our operating costs much lower than what we're paying now. And I know that that's not new, but it's certainly We've talked about it as part of Matt Brown's presentations over the years to this group as we went and brought on OPN to work on the public safety facility here and the joint library city hall building at the current library site. But, you know, Michelle's presentation shows the data that helps emphasize the critical needs that this community is facing.
You mentioned, I had not heard this part yet, that the footing is dropped
On the north side of the
on the
building.
north side of the building and there's nothing, I mean, structurally, I'm assuming we're okay or is
Yeah,
it-
there's not a, I mean, as long as we keep up on the tuck pointing repairs, so we're set for next fiscal year, about $18,000 to do the tuck pointing. As long as we continue to plan that, that's just going to be a reality of this building, according to the contractor. But no, the building is not going to fall down or anything like
Okay.
that.
All right.
I think this is a very powerful quote that you have shared here. I think you guys do a remarkable job.
Thank you.
You have a great
Mhm.
staff offering great programs, but I think you're right. I mean, it's got great stats saying more and more people are coming to the library and you just can't do everything you want to be doing, can be doing, and should be doing because of the limit of the building. And that's just really unfortunate. What?
I was just going to say, I think it's really important to get the word out that library usage is up,
Yes.
because there was a comment last week that, you know, just assuming it was down. And I think, again, just to echo the other comments, you've done a wonderful job with your programming, your promoting, but I think we really need to get the word out that this is something that people are very interested in. And yeah, then we have to go about, you know, all the ways of looking at what we can do about all of this, because it's probably another example of kicking the can down the road.
At least the boiler can.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there is a can.
That's true.
Yes,
Well,
that's true.
still.
And I'm really glad to hear that there's no, you know, danger with the footings issue. But, I mean, do we have mold? Are there any issues with mold because of that, or seepage, or, you know, other things from
Yes,
that?
we do.
Yes. yeah.
Yes. There's major problems that need to be addressed in terms of those footings, but
Mhm.
yes.
Maybe you can't speak to this, but is the library board shifting its focus to, instead of maintaining and, you know, shooting for that 1.1 million of maintenance, not improvements, and moving on and trying to push forward getting a new building, or to spearhead making a significant change? Have they changed their focus as a board? And again, maybe you can't speak to that.
Yes, that is what they feel is the best for the future of the library in Indianola, is to work on getting the appropriate size for community art. At the same time, they're not ignoring the problems and just hoping they'll go away and just waiting. They are doing both. It's a dual. They're going to take care of the building, but they will be trying to express to people the needs of the library and what it could mean to the community to have an expanded library.
I just wanted to at least thank you, because you have done such a tremendous job with children's programming and everything. I mean, it really is great. And I need to feel good about that.
We have a fantastic staff.
Yep, and I just want, yes, I also wanted to piggyback off of that as well, that it's amazing to see what's gone on with the library and the improvements, even though the building's shaky. The inside of it is awesome, and you guys have done a phenomenal job. And I always have to point this out. Every time I look at your budget, it's always positive, no more negative budgets, which we fought for many years. And so I appreciate that. You guys do an incredible amount of stuff with the funds that you have, and it's awesome. And then on top of that, you got to take care of this building that's just, so thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And that goes back to trying to get people to help with maintenance.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a specified maintenance person to do these things, correct? We
borrow from other departments to help.
That is true. I have my degrees are in English and library. That's not, English. Defense
Well, I
counsel,
was going to say,
yeah.
when I had my tour of the library, I think Michelle was down there tinkering with the boiler herself, so.
I witnessed that as well.
Yeah.
Was she kicking it?
I should have got like a,
You know, had a couple
engineering degree or
wires she
something.
was fiddling around with.
But thanks for everything you do.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we're moving to presentation regarding the capital improvement plan. Andy, I think you're up.
From a distance, okay.
Oh, I see. That was a whole separate presentation.
No.
All right. Mayor, members of council, I'm here to talk about the capital improvement plan. CIP. First, I want to thank all the department heads for their help with putting this together. Mainly, they do a lot of the legwork on putting the request together and put the information together and the planning, and then I help to organize all of it and present it to you. So what we're presenting to you this evening is some of the planning that we've done, not only for the upcoming fiscal year, but also for 5 years in advance, a total of 5 years, 4 years, in addition to the 2023. And it's just one of the steps of the budgeting process. First couple of slides, if you've been here, seen this before, you'll notice that I'm just going to review some of the things that go into a capital improvement plan. And this slide shows specifics of our policy for capital improvement plan. It's a couple of things here I wanted to point out on our policies. That it is a 5-year plan, and we do our best to make sure that we cover all the costs, the true costs of a capital improvement project. That includes engineering, right-of-way costs, things like that when we're looking at a capital project. Then the next slide is definitions, some main definitions for capital improvement plan. And these terms are used in CIP to assist you in better understanding what is taken into account when CIP is put together. Mainly when we're looking at capital improvement plan project, and this thing is, it's often asked of me, what is a capital improvement project? Well, mainly what we're looking at are those items that are going to cost over $5,000 and then last for several years, at least 3 years. And so what are the benefits of capital improvement plan? Well, listed on the slide are some of those benefits of a capital improvement plan, but two of the things that I wanted to bring out to you mainly are that it allows for employees to see a big picture of what is also going on in the city. It helps you for the plan for projects coming up, so some of these are really big expenses, and then it allows you to maintain what you currently have, so that you're not dealing with all these items that are going, your failing footings, your boilers that are several decades out of, old and out of date. And so that you're able to keep up with that and to able to plan out and to budget accordingly. And then it also allows for regional cooperation, so that when we put out our capital improvement plan, the school and the county and all those other partners know what's going on. We regularly meet with IMU department heads every 2 weeks. We have a development review meeting that we have with I know Mike and Lou are there on a regular basis, and so is Kurt, so that we can share with them what is our capital improvement plan, so they know, they're aware of what's going to be happening and what project we have coming up, so that they can plan accordingly as well. And I think this is one of the best things that Ryan, when he got here, he was able to develop the CIP with the council so that we can plan and project accordingly in the budget several years into future years. The CIP mainly has 2 sections, and the first section that I want to cover is the vehicles and equipment. Like I said, these items are over $5,000 in cost and last over 3 to 5 years at least, a minimum. And the fund is Fund 190. It receives contributions from various departments, but also a portion of the property tax revenue. And the departments also do a good job of seeking out grants or donations to help out with defray some of those costs. This slide will show you some of the vehicle and equipment that we have planned for FY 2023. A lot of these are just replacements, vehicle replacements that we have that have met the their lifespan. We do have a rotation for police vehicles as well, and then we also have a replacement. Try to have a replacement schedule also for the fire and EMS. One of the things that we want to point out on there, underneath the police, you'll see BWC. That's the body worn cameras that the police department doesn't currently have. So that is a new piece of equipment. The police department are looking at several different models, testing out different models, and then they'll be bringing that to the council later on. But we want to plan for that, and we're spacing out that expense over several years. The other thing I wanted to point out was the fire engine that's underneath the fire and EMS department. That fire engine is 23 years old. And granted, fortunately, we don't use that fire engine very often. But being over 20 years old, you definitely don't want that thing to break down when you're going in an emergency situation, going after a fire. So it is 23 years old. It's met its lifespan, so we're looking at replacing it.
Andy, really quick, I just, you said something that I think is important. I think Councilman Parker, you've mentioned this in previous years, that you'll notice that a lot of these things are now replacing. So we built it into the structure of the budget, so now it just becomes automatic with the replacement. So like when you get to a police vehicle or an ambulance, okay, great, we're on that schedule, so we know that it's the funding is built into the actual structure of the budget, and it just, we're able to stay on top of that, so we don't get to a point where we have the fleet that's starting to get old, and now we're trying to find where can we fund, how can we fund it. It's, I think you'll see over the last couple of years now, we're just, okay, now we're getting to that point. We're just replacing. We're not adding, we're replacing.
Yeah, I know there's been colleagues, former colleagues of mine sitting up here that have said, called this the wish list, and that's, it's not. This is things that we need as a city to be able to provide the services, so staff can provide the services to the community. And it's not a wish list. It's definitely gone through, and I think it frustrates me and has frustrated me over the years when I hear people say that, because this is an important thing. I mean, these are things that are used every day for our community. So,
well, and to add to it, when we get into the point in this process that we're at, the things that are replacing, we can quickly point out. So from a transparency standpoint, quickly point out, like Andy did, hey, you know what? You know what is new? The body worn cameras. Why is that new? Well, guess what? That's something that has been facing all jurisdictions these last couple of years. It's a big thing. Our department did the research on it. They're putting it in. It's now, but now we can pull it out and say, hey, council, this is a decision point that you have to make as we go further along in this budget process.
Well,
So-
this council has said over and over again, we have to be able to provide our people the tools that they need to do their job.
I think I wanted to add to your point, John, on the things that we use every day. You know, before my time on council, I think like everyone, assume and trust our leaders to do the right, to provide the services that are required, and that individuals and citizens, residents, however you want to refer to us, that we count on and that we assume will be there. And when I found out that they were not in the past, I just think, I just couldn't believe it. And so I know there are trust issues with government everywhere right now, but I think this is something really important to point out to people, that what is being done and what has been done, as Ryan pointed out, now we're there, where we're replacing, we're not adding, and we're doing the things that need to be done. These are just such important points for people to understand. And I know there's a lot of apathy or maybe just misplaced trust in the past. I just think it's really important that we're doing these, and that people recognize that and know it and understand it.
Okay. The next slide, will show what we have planned for fiscal years 2024, 2027. We have one thing underneath IT. The IT currently we're doing a review with Ready Tech, so we're Red Eye Tech. I'm sorry, I keep calling Ready Tech. Red Eye Tech to review what we have some of those IT expenses that will be coming up. So we're reviewing that currently. A couple of other things that I want to note on here is that the fire department engine, another engine that's coming up in 2027, that engine will be 27 years old when we're replacing it. But it's something that we're fitting into there so that we can fund all the vehicles and equipment accordingly. But that's going to be replaced in 2027. And then the medic unit, another term for an ambulance. We have those on, as I presented before, we have that on a 3-year rotation. So the next one will be coming up at FY25. Then you also see the street sweeper there in FY25. Yes, we did replace the street sweeper a few years ago, but that's going to be coming up. That's used on a regular basis every day during the summer and then into the fall. So it has a lot of wear and tear on it. So we better plan to plan accordingly and budget accordingly to replace that rather large piece of equipment. And then the factory jet in the water resource recovery department, that will be in FY24, and that'll be 13 years old. And that's used on a regular basis to clean out sanitary sewer lines and also storm sewer lines. This is the funding matrix for the vehicles and equipment. You notice that for the property tax line, we're reducing that slightly. We're shifting a little bit of property tax towards street maintenance, and I'll get into that as we could talk about street infrastructure. But this is our funding matrix for vehicles and equipment for the next 5 years. And then the next half of the CIP is mainly infrastructure. You notice that the items are separated into functions of funds shown on the slide. Again, these are funded through contributions of the departments and then a portion of property tax revenue, and the infrastructure that's in the sanitary sewer and also for the storm sewer. Those are funded through fees or through loans, as the water resource recovery facilities being financed through SRF loans. And then again, the departments are pretty good about seeking out grants or donations to help with those costs. These are the planned infrastructure for the parks and for the library, for FY23 through 27. The library, as Michelle noted, has several building infrastructure items that will be coming up, and the parks' main focus will be for trails. Ryan, did you want to?
No, just, yeah, I think we talked about it during Michelle's presentation about the mechanical, the safety and the structural issues with the library stuff. And then with the parks and the rec and the trails, I know Doug and his staff went through updating the trail master plan. What was it, Doug? 2 years ago? 2 years ago, and as part of the comp plan. I mean, this is something that we've been implementing year after year after year. So we've talked a lot about, the city has these plans, and we've gone through the effort to update our plans and make sure that it's reflective of the community's vision. And so now it's just executing on those plans. Plans don't do communities any good if they're just sitting on the shelf. Gathering does. So.
And this is the funding matrix for the Parks Library for the general fund CIP infrastructure items. A couple things I wanted to point out. I'm working on with the Parks Department on a steady transfer of $200,000 for the trails so that they can budget accordingly, so we don't have highs and lows each year, and then we can have a steady budget type transfer from them for their trails. And I know they are working on also on a REAP grant for the McVeigh connection for that trail up to the Bloomfield. So that's why I had that. You'll also notice that there's no property tax contribution. Again, trying to shift more towards streets, and I'll get to that in a moment. For the street infrastructure, as you recall, the city with Snyder worked on a street master plan. So we're developing a lot of these projects from that street master plan, working off data. These are projects are data driven. So we worked with Snyder on that plan, and then AP has taken all this data and is planning accordingly for these projects. You'll notice that in the next for 23-24, we're working on finishing up the streetscape, starting on Hillcrest and K Street, and then working on signals at Buxton and 2nd Avenue. And then with the American Rescue Plan funding, we're looking at that water and sewer infrastructure, but also the road above the water and the sewer on Boston Avenue. And then depending on the estimates and the bids that we receive, we may do a little bit on F Street as well on that project. Then the other streets for the projects for 25 through 27, I know that AP will probably be reviewing that with the council on a future study session, but those again are all from the street master plan.
So using the data to drive those decisions.
This is the street CIP funding matrix. You'll notice that we have a higher contribution from road use because of the increase in population. So we have a higher per capita coming from the road use, coming from the state to the city for road use. And then also an increased contribution from the franchise fee and also property tax. What we're looking at is for this street master plan, what we told us was that we need to work towards a $1.5 million contribution for streets to work on our infrastructure. Otherwise, again, we'll be kicking the can down the road, and we'll be trying to maintain roads while others are failing. And so we need to work on trying to increase that funding to work on the repair and maintenance of our street infrastructure. So that's why we're looking at other ways to increase that funding for those projects. Looking at the CIP for the Water Resource Recovery Department for the sanitary sewer, main focus is going to be getting the new facility up and running and getting that going while maintaining some of the maintenance that we're already doing on an annual basis that Rick and his department are doing, maintaining sanitary sewer manholes and also doing the lining as well. And one of the discussion points that we will have coming up is the demolition of the existing plant. So we'll have to keep that in mind, discuss that with council in the future.
And before he goes on to the next slide, another data-driven decisions. Next month at the study session, HR Green and Rick will be here to present the update to the hydraulics, which, as some of you know, is what has helped informed a lot of the activities that Rick and our sewer team have been. That helps us understand where we need to be investing in order to eliminate pinch points or fix some of the failing infrastructure.
This is a funding matrix for the sanitary sewer CIP projects. One of the things that you'll notice that the negative balance for the current fiscal year, that's mainly has to do with the timing for the SRF reimbursement. So there is a negative balance right there, but it quickly recovers as we get in those reimbursements on the SRF loans for the facility projects. So I'm meeting with Mike Maloney this week, just trying to update the pro forma so that we have this more in line and we're in sync on the funding for the department. For the stormwater utility. So we have CIP infrastructure, it's the projects that we have there. Again, this is data-driven projects that AP's been able to work on, scheduling these projects from the stormwater master plan that we worked with Snyder on. As you recall, we're looking at projects that we're going to take about 28 years to complete. The council looked at that and decided that we needed an increase in the revenue, so that it took a lot less for 9 years to complete those projects. So we are starting to look at what projects need to be addressed moving forward. So those are those projects there. And then the funding matrix for the stormwater utility. And then looking forward, we're looking at other areas of the city that may need to do some additional planning and some infrastructure scheduling. One of them is Hillcrest, and about $30,000 that we're looking at for doing a design for the Hillcrest extension. And then also looking at improvements to 14th Street for the industrial park. And we're looking at about 35 to 40,000 for that engineering.
And those are two critical projects. We talked about that. I think we've talked about it at a previous budget session, but also during I think it was the April retreat. Those two are critically important when you look at the expansion of the business park, the industrial park, 14th, and the condition of that road. And there is no infrastructure. There's drainage ditches, and that's not appropriate for what's out there now, and let alone what's going to be developed out there. We've heard from some of the businesses in there that have had issues with the lack of infrastructure over there, especially when they're trying to bring in clients and really sell their product. It hasn't helped, especially when they're having to go through standing water because it's not able to handle it. And our engineer will tell you that that's probably the flattest roadway in our community, and so a lot of it's not draining. But when we look at that, but then when we also look at the growth that's happening in the northeast portion, having that connection with Hillcrest, and Charlie talked about it a couple meetings ago when we were looking at our updating our TIF plan, especially with the de-armament Ford. There was that long sliver that was included, and that was done from the planning perspective of this being something in the future that is coming in. And really help disperse the transportation and disperse it properly so it's not overloading one system, which is then going to cause some other failures elsewhere. So, with an eye to the future.
With that, I'll take any questions.
As always, I appreciate you laying it out like you do. It's nothing new.
I was
We've
gonna say,
been talking about it.
you definitely keep it on our radar, so thank you.
Yeah, no problem. We'll have this out in a weekly email and also post it to the website so you can review it.
Thanks for all you do, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
Lots of good planning. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Traffic counts on like 14th and Hillcrest and some of those. The only reason is an observation as I drive those multiple times.
I'm sorry, I can't. I'm sorry, there's
Do we
noise.
do traffic counts on Hillcrest and 14th? I mean, how often do we do stuff like that? Some of our major streets?
Is that something we?
So in the Iowa DOT does turning movement counts every 5 years in every
Right.
community, and our turn was 2020.
Yeah.
So they didn't finish their count program. So we counted on the DOT counting 14th and Hillcrest and 9th and Hillcrest, several of those locations. And some of that data was collected and thrown away, and some of it is going to be recounted
Okay.
because just the travel demand in March of 2020
Yeah.
just wasn't.
Right.
Yes.
Because I just
Not a
as
good
as
indicator.
an observation, there carries so much more traffic over the last three years especially, but over
I
5
think
years.
that's
But
why we were hoping that the DOT would get it counted. It
Yeah.
hasn't been counted since 2016. is the last
Oh,
time.
wow, yeah.
yeah,
So we were hoping to have fresh counts. As we get into the design aspect, we have to count it ourselves.
Yeah,
okay.
the DOT is scheduled to do counts during this year or early next year. But if they don't, we have discussed about doing the counts also, so, just for the
At
pavement.
least at 9th and Hillcrest, the design it, we need to know.
Right.
And be able to project that going forward.
Yeah.
for traffic.
And I know too, 14th, I mean, you look at all the little patches that are done it just, you can just tell that all that water gets underneath that road. We have issues, so, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Andy.
Other comments? Anything else? All right, let's adjourn. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.